Using apple cider vinegar for salad dressing is a great way to add flavor to your salads without adding a ton of calories. Although apple cider vinegar is great on a normal lettuce-based salad, I wanted to show you how to use apple cider vinegar as a dressing by showing you this salad recipe from Argentina. This is actually my friend's recipe. Originally, it's kind of a citrus coleslaw with grapefruit, but I prefer it with orange. I'll show you how to go about doing it. If you saw my apple coleslaw recipe video, it's similar to that one, so be sure to check that out if you didn't see it. Except this time, I'm not going to use mayo, I'm trying to be healthier, so I'm going to use apple cider vinegar. This recipe calls for oranges. Like I said, originally it's grapefruit, but I prefer to use oranges, red cabbage, and carrots. I like the oranges because they're sweeter than grapefruit, and I think the sweetness of the oranges contrasts better with the tartness of the apple cider vinegar. But if you want to use grapefruit like the original recipe, you can. I recommend a ruby grapefruit, not a white grapefruit. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to peel the oranges and cut them. So once I get the wedges, I'm going to cut them into more bite-sized pieces. Then I'm going to grate the carrot, like in many other Argentinian recipes. And then the red cabbage, I'm going to dice. I'm not going to need all of that, so actually maybe I should not have put that all there. I'm going for maybe a cup of chopped oranges, half a cup of carrot, and half a cup of the red cabbage. And one thing that's interesting about grapefruit in Argentina is that the word in Argentina that they use for grapefruit, where should I put this, is pomelo. But in English, the fruit pomelo means something else. It refers to a completely different fruit. I did some research on it, and I don't know if you've ever been to the grocery store and you've seen a fruit that's been labeled as pomelo, but it's really big. It's the biggest citrus fruit. It is like a yellow or a light green, yellowish green. According to the research I did, supposedly it's originally from Southeast Asia, but grapefruit is smaller and it's from the Caribbean. Barbados. It's actually kind of murky where grapefruit is from. There are different theories, but it seems like most of them agree that it's from the Caribbean and that it's probably a hybrid between oranges and pomelo. So it is related to pomelo, but it is not pomelo. I've never actually tried pomelo. So if anyone has ever tried pomelo and can comment on the difference between it and grapefruit, please let me know. Now that the orange is peeled, I'm just going to start chopping them like that. Bite-sized pieces. They do not all have to be the same size, but if they're about the same size, that's better. I'm going for about a cup. Let's see. That's half a cup. Okay, that's a quarter of a cup. So yeah, 2 small navel oranges is probably about what you'll need for this. If it's a little bit more, a little bit less, I think it'll be fine, but I have a sweet tooth, so just like with the apple coleslaw, I prefer those pieces that had a lot of the white part on them. I prefer the sweet component to be significant. So now I have 1 cup of the orange. I didn't use all of it. Maybe I will. I'm not quite sure. And now I'm just going to grate the carrot and the cheese grater. And going back to the grapefruit, that's just a good example of how different dialects of Spanish can differ from each other. Normally in Spanish, in most countries, grapefruit is toronja, but in Argentina it's pomelo. It's a good idea if you're learning Spanish. Some words you'll have to learn 2 words for the same thing because people in one country will say one thing, but people in another country will say another thing. And it might be vulgar in one country and not vulgar there. So very interesting how the same language can be so different. But that's how English is between British English, American English, Australian English. Languages are so interesting and so complicated. I just finished grating the carrot, more than half of a cup I think. So I'm just going to use the rest of the apple, or excuse me, the rest of the orange. I don't want to not use a little bit of it, save it for tomorrow. Even though I try to give you exact measurements with these types of salads, honestly, going back to the apple coleslaw, not all apples are the same size, not all carrots are the same size, not all oranges are the same size. So sometimes you have to adjust things and go by taste. That's part of this type of cooking. I'm just going to continue chopping the orange. Sometimes you might notice that I'm going to say orange, but I stop. That's because I'm thinking of the word in Spanish. I'm thinking of naranja, and I want to say it in Spanish because this is something that's in my mind in Spanish. So that's why I keep wanting to speak in Spanish. It's funny, if you know a language, certain things, if they remind you of that language, you think of those things in that language, and it's just natural. Certain things, I think, if you're bilingual, like I said, if you learn them in that language, they're stuck in your head, and that's language. Going back to dialects while I cut this red cabbage, linguists have tried to identify the dialects of Spanish. This map from Wikipedia gives you a good general idea of the geographic distribution of different dialects of Spanish. As you can see, in Argentina, the main dialect of Spanish is Rio Platense, named as such because it developed along the shores of the Rio de la Plata estuary. Even within Argentina, there are different dialects. In the future, I'll be including more language information on my channel, so stay tuned. I already put my naranja, my orange, into this bowl. I would say 1 1/3 cups, and then 1/3 cup each. Excuse me, 2/3 of a cup each. The red cabbage. Actually, let's see how this goes. Let's do that. Then this. So there. And now for the apple cider vinegar. I know usually with vinaigrettes it's 1 part vinegar or acid and then 3 parts oil. But if you remember from my grated carrot salad video, I realized that I prefer, at least for salads, I prefer half. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with 1 tablespoon of actually 2 tablespoons of the apple cider vinegar. And I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of olive oil just to see how it is with 1. Look at that shine. You could use a neutral oil like vegetable oil or something, but I've tried a lot of oils. I think this is best with olive oil. Don't know why. But like I said, you could use any oil that you want. And yes, I know I'm making a mess. I'm making a quilombo, but that's okay. I'll clean the counter.
Like I said earlier in the video, not all produce is the same size, so it's really hard to give you exact measurements for salads like this. However, a good rule of thumb is that half of the ingredients of the salad should be the sweet component, either the naranja, the orange, or the pomelo, the grapefruit, and a quarter should be red cabbage, and a quarter should be the shredded carrot. For my salad, I used about 1 cup plus a third of a cup, so 4/3 of a cup of orange, 2/3 of a cup of red cabbage, and 2/3 of a cup of carrot. And in order to dress that amount of salad, I used 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and some salt, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Honestly, if you want a bit more of a sweet and tart contrast, you could add another tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, and if you want a little bit more oil, I think you could add another tablespoon as well. But as you know, I usually give people conservative amounts in regards to condiments because once you add it, it's hard to take away.
This is delicious. I'll show you. You might want to add a little bit more apple cider vinegar if you want a little bit more tart. But honestly, I like it to be sweet with just a little bit of tartness in the background. So I think this is good. If you are looking for a new salad dressing, try using apple cider vinegar in this Argentinian, we'll call it naranja orange coleslaw.
Like I already said, this orange coleslaw with apple cider vinegar for dressing was incredibly delicious. Although I didn't add any mayo to this in an effort to stay healthy, I think that a little bit of mayo would actually be pretty good. So if anyone makes this orange coleslaw recipe and adds mayo, please let me know how it turns out. Just like with the apple coleslaw, this dish would be the perfect side dish for barbecue. Imagine going to a barbecue or picnic this coming summer and bringing this as a side dish. I'm sure that it would be a great conversation starter. Having the same thing all the time can be a bit boring, so why not try an Argentine coleslaw? That's what I like about Argentine food. It's different enough from mainstream American food to be different, but it's similar enough to be recognizable. And most of the ingredients are readily available. So, since this recipe is different but not too different, you should definitely give it a try.